One day I'm gonna be everything I wanna be. I don't let it get the most of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be everything I'm gonna be. My future right in front of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be free. Then let me be free. One day I'm gonna be free. Mentally and physically, emotionally and spiritually. One day I'm gonna be free. I'm standing at the crossroads. I'm feeling like a lost soul. Don't know where I wanna go, but all I know is I wanna be free. They're telling me to let it be, but that just ain't in me, no. Jealousy and envy, but all I see is I wanna be free. See everything I wanna be, exactly what I'm gonna be. Don't let it get the most of me. Eventually, I'm gonna be free. See everything I wanna be, exactly what I'm gonna be. Yeah. One day I'm gonna be free. I'm gonna be free. Let me be free. One day I'm gonna be free. Mentally and physically, emotionally and spiritually. One day I'm gonna be free. I told them take their aim off me. Stop trying to get a name off me. If they would just let me be, I'm gonna be free. I told them take them chains off me and throw away the locks and keys. If they would just let me be, eventually I'm gonna be free.
They're back.
Episode of Dominant Effect. I'm Archbishop. We got Mike Ball. Glad everybody came out tonight. We got another story for you. We've been digging into all the stuff that's been going on for the past 11 days, but we're gonna try to fill in some of the blanks that we have. If all the ones that's on the chat right now, if you got any questions, you got anything that you want to add to what it is that we're talking about, feel free to put it in. Just like us, we're trying to find out the truth behind all this anyway. So the more information we get, the better. But over the last week, the world may have crossed into one of the most dangerous geopolitical moments that we've seen in decades. Iran is now under new leadership after the appointment of a new supreme leader. Russia is reportedly providing intelligence support, and the U.S. and Israel are striking targets across the region. And one of the most critical oil routes on Earth, the Strait of Hormuz, is now sitting on the edge of military confrontation. So tonight we're going to break down everything that's happening in this so-called war, conflict, whichever one you want to put into it. Um, the leadership shift that's happening in Iran, Russia's role behind the scenes, and the military reality of possible boots on the ground. And the uncomfortable question that nobody seems to be asking is who actually is benefiting from this conflict? But before we talk about all the players that's involved, we need to understand how this situation escalated so quickly in the past week. So we're going to go through this short little timeline as to what all happened from beginning to where we are right now. So on February 28th, this is when everything started. And the United States and Israel launched a massive coordinated strike against Iran called Operation Epic Fury. And hundreds of strikes was targeted. Iranian missile sites, you had air defenses, you had actual strikes on military leadership. And during those opening strikes, Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was killed, along with 19 of his senior officials. So then we drop down to March 1st and 2nd. This is when Iran actually starts to retaliate. And they responded with ballistic missile attacks, drone strikes. And a lot of those targets included U.S. bases, a lot of the Gulf countries, and Israel. That conflict itself just kind of rapidly spread it throughout the borders. So you had the UAE, you had Dubai, you had Israel. Then there was a lot of other news that came out, said that there was something that went over to Turkey and different things like that. But a lot of that, come to find out, was actually false. It wasn't an actual strike in Turkey, but we'll dig into that part a little bit later too. Then you have right around March 3rd and 4th, where we had this massive air campaign where the U.S. and Israel launched continuous waves of strikes across Iran. And those strikes targeted missile launch sites, again, air defense systems, military infrastructures. You had thousands of targets that were hit the first several days of this operation. And the goal of that was to reduce Iran's ability to put on full-scale missile attacks. Then we dropped down to March 5th and 6th, was more of like a regional escalation. And that conflict there extended beyond Iran. And that's where you had a lot of missile and drone strikes that hit a lot of the Gulf countries. It hit Israel. It hit regional bases. It hit embassies. And also during that time, you had Hezbollah and Lebanon opening up another front against Israel on that end. And this significantly increased the risk of that border regional conflicts that they had going on, which is still going on. Then drop down a little bit further, you have the, let me see, right around March 7th, you have Israeli strikes that hit oil depots and fuel facilities around Tehran. You had attacks that created smoke cloud environments concerns throughout the city. They said that on several occasions that there was so much smoke there that it blocked the sun, and when it rained black.
Well, that's from that big, when you explode something like a refinery or any type of stuff regarding petrol or oil, man, that shit is just endless. Yeah.
Right. On the 8th is when the Iran Assembly selected, what is his name? Motabi Kalani as the new supreme leader, which is actually the son of the assassinated supreme leader. We're gonna get into him as well to kind of give you a rundown as to who exactly he is and the reason how he ended up in that position. March 9th and 10th, you had the escalation that was in the Persian Gulf, and Iran threatened to block the oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. And those routes there carry roughly 20 to 30% of the oil that supplies the world. And the
It's a big
U.S.
chunk.
Navy what's that?
It's a big chunk of oil. I mean, 20% goes through the strait.
Right. And so the U.S. Navy also started hitting a lot of these Iranian mine laying vessels that were trying to put mines in the water in the strait. And, during that time, when they first started talking about that, that's when oil prices just took off to the ceiling at that point. And I think once it actually started, well, before it started, we was right at roughly $56 a gallon.
56 bucks per barrel.
Yeah, a barrel. Sorry, a barrel. And then it jumped up to well over $100. And a lot of these people that I've watched on different stations is talking about that it could actually go up way higher than that. Some experts were saying that it could go up to at least $200 a barrel, depending on how long this conflict continues to go. So that's on the 10th. Today's the 11th, correct?
Yep.
I was looking at something earlier, and they said that in these past 11 days that we have spent close to $12 billion on this effort so far. That's just basically just adding on to the deficit that we already sitting at, what, 39 trillion as it is. Now we steady adding on basically $1 billion a day. It's what we basically adding on to this. So that's going to become more of a conflict. Even though it's going on there, it's going to be more of a conflict here because, of course, everything's going to start raising. Prices of gas already shooting up. I think here it's close to $4. It's like $3.80, something like that.
The average now.
Yeah, I seen a thing over in LA where it was over $8.
Yes, it is. On certain locations, there's like a couple of gas stations in downtown Los Angeles and Hollywood area. And
then, that's what they were saying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to jump into, we're going to talk about this new supreme leader and exactly who he is.
Right.
So I had this, hold on a minute, where I got this. I got this written down here. So let me pull it up here. Motaba Kanami. He's a 56-year-old son of Ali Kanami and was chosen by Iran assembly experts as the new supreme leader after his father was killed in the opening phases of this war. Reuters described him as a mild-ranking cleric with deep ties to Iran's security establishment, especially the RIGC. Now, why does he matter? Because he's not just the son of the last supreme leader. For years, he's been seen as a power behind the scenes, especially a gatekeeper around his father, which influenced over-access politics and the security elite. And Reuters said that he built power and close ties to the Revolutionary Guard and the business security networks tied to him, even though he never held an elective office. His reputation is widely viewed as a hardliner. They report that he opposed reformist and Western engagement, and that criticized his association with him and his hardline crackdown after the disrupted 2009 Iranian election. He also lacks the senior clerical structure of some past leaders. Reuters noticed that his his ranking before, which was under the Ayatollah, but that matters because it feeds the argument of his real power base, not religious literacy. But the RGC and security apparatus kind of goes along with him. So he's been in the background, kind of calling the shots along the way, helping his father. Other useful background points for him is that he was sanctioned by the U.S. in 2019 for acting on behalf of his father's office. They say that he helped build and influence around former President Ahmadinejad's rise. And since being appointed, he remained notably quiet in the public, and they also reported speculation that he may have been injured in one of these strikes that had been going on. So there's no actual confirmation as to whether or not he was actually hit or not, but they said that he was in that vicinity. Some people say that he was hurt. Some of them say that he wasn't.
I've seen conflicting reports on that as well. I've heard that the guy's gotten hurt and there was injuries. Now, I recently just saw in the chat just earlier is that people are hearing that he actually lost his leg. But I haven't even heard that myself. So
said that he what now?
That he lost his leg in the injury. But I don't know that to be fact. I'm just saying that people are talking about that in the chat right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So they was talking about this guy, and they were saying that if you didn't like the way the first supreme leader is, that you wouldn't like this guy at all because he's supposed to be more of a hardliner when it comes to everything. They said where Ali was more diplomatic, he's more
lenient, right?
He's more of a hard ass when it comes to politics and how things are supposed to go.
The young guys, man, I'm telling you, it's a different generation, a different type of mindset, and it's a lot more hardcore, actually.
Yeah. You got to think along. Well, especially him, for instance, he's been around everything for basically his whole life. You know what I mean? So he's and if he's behind the scenes, he's seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly in everything. You know what I mean? Even though he wasn't in power, never held no elected position or anything like that, he was still involved with a lot of stuff. He had a lot of connections. You know what I mean? So when it was his time, it wasn't even a question as to who they were going to put there. They automatically put him there. And being the fact that you just lost 19 other senior officials, probably
that number is skyrocketed too. I forget what the exact number is, but I reported it earlier this week. It was something like, I don't know, like I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's something like way up there, like over 100.
Yeah, there was I think on both sides they're taking losses on both fronts. They're taking losses.
Well, in Iran attacking the U.S. bases in like places like Qatar and stuff like that, they're not really making good neighborly decisions at the moment because their neighbors don't like that shit. They don't like that. That's as much as, yes, that is U.S. stuff there. They don't like their missiles coming into their country.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not. Sure they don't. But right now, though, what are they really doing? You know what I mean? They ain't really doing nothing. They just sitting back, just waiting to see what's going to happen.
Russia. That's exactly what Russia's doing.
Yeah, that's exactly that's what Russia's doing. That's what China's doing. That's what
the world is watching it.
Right. Yep. But they watching to see what's getting ready to go on next. Over in Israel, they've been taking quite a hit over there. The last numbers that I got here was that they had they lost 198 Air Force officers, 462
Damn.
soldiers, 11 nuclear scientists.
Wow, really?
6 generals and 32 Mossad agents. Their head of Mossad uh, David Bernier was killed yesterday in a retaliatory strike, missile strike. But here's the thing with that. So he was killed in this missile strike, and the reports that's coming out was saying that he was having a meeting with Netanyahu. So was he in the building when this took place? Because there's speculation out now that he was in the place and that he was also there when this missile attack happened. There's been no certified confirmation about that though, but there has been different reports that are coming out that's saying that Netanyahu may be unalive because of this meeting. But we're not saying that that's what happened. This is just speculation. And then they had the I don't know whether you heard this or not, but they had Iran had tapped into the phone systems in Israel and basically sent them a text. They sent everybody a text.
Yeah, I heard about the text.
That the last American radar system has been destroyed. Your government leaders are lying to you. Leave the country because the missiles are coming. So they tapped into everybody's phone, and this is the message that they sent. Now, I thought that was strange. Like, okay, like why would they do that? But then as I started digging into some other stuff, I found that Israel had actually done the same thing to Iran, but they basically told them, just stay in place, stay where you're at.
that they hacked into, and so did the United States, actually. United States put on their state, took over their state media essentially and came out with a message. Yeah. I mean, it was actually Trump saying something, so.
I was, as I started going through this stuff, trying to pick out all the little things on here to figure out what's what. And I've been kind of wondering the whole time as to why Israel sees Iran as such a big threat. So I started doing a little research on it, and it says that Iran's current government that was formed back in 79 during the Islamic Revolution, which replaced the Western Shah in the revolutionary Islamic regime during that time. And the Iranian officials reportedly described Israel as a illegitimate state, a Western outpost for the Middle East, and a strategic enemy. They also didn't like the fact that Iran had nuclear capabilities. Now, at one point, it was said that they were only using the nuclear for power, and then you found out later on that they were actually enriching that uranium to be able to actually use it for weapons. And that's how all this other stuff started coming along before. Well, I think this was back in 16 when they first started to come up with the first treaty that Obama and them had made up with them or whatever, is to keep them from actually making a nuclear weapon, not being able to enrich it to the point that they could use it for that, but could use nuclear for power only. Then you had the whole proxy network that was going on because Iran was funding Hezbollah in Lebanon. They was funding the Houthis in Yemen, and they were funding a lot of militias in Iraq and in Syria.
Well, you got to also remember how is Iran getting all that money as well? They're getting funded somewhere too, and that came from Daddy Putin.
Right. So so they making money from the oil, number one, but then they also getting money from Russia and China. Both of them had their hands in this. So this all, like, when I noticed when I started digging into a lot of this stuff, you realize that this is, whether we're talking about Iran or we're talking about Ukraine or we're talking about Pakistan, whatever, this always seems like one big, huge proxy, because all these, it's like every time something goes into it, you look at the three main powers, which is the US, Russia, and China, somewhere along the line, are involved. Some way, shape, or form, they're involved in it. You know what I mean? It's like these other countries sit there and fight it out, and we just sit there and fund it, and we give them weapons, and we, do all the little extras. See, now we're actually in the game right now. You know what I mean? So I think the numbers dealing with us from the last I checked was, I think it was 150 that was injured. It was 8 that they confirmed that to be unalive. But
you're talking the U.S. side, right?
Yes, sir. But when you watching some of the news stations over on that side, those numbers are different.
Right.
So, so as of right now, you really don't have a definite count because, like I said, these numbers has been manipulated.
And it's always been that way. Unfortunately, that's their great way to being able to manipulate these kind of things on both sides of the equation. No one's, innocent in that regard, for sure.
Right. So then, like I said, the other day, there was, like I said, you had those vessels that was in the Strait of Hormuz because they officially closed the strait, and Iran was basically threatening any ship that tried to come through that they were basically gonna destroy the ships. And then they started putting actual mines out in the strait to keep these tankers from actually going through. One report I heard was that the U.S. ships was actually escorting some of these ships through.
That's not true, though.
Right. That's what I was getting ready to say.
Okay.
That's what I was getting ready to say. That's what they were doing, and then they came back and said, no, that's not what they were doing. So like I said, even when we're talking about just something as simple as that, you're getting a lot of mixed stories as to what's really going on over there. You know what I mean? So there's actually figuring out the truth behind everything that's going on. You ain't gonna never get the truth out of this because it seems like there's so many different things that's going on, but not only is so many different things going on, but there's also so much being covered up.
Yes. So on both sides of the equation,
right?
No matter what, they're gonna suppress it or inflate to make their side look better, or deflate the amount of losses they actually have taken. There's a lot of issues with this.
Right. I mean, like when I seen the part where they was talking about that we only had 150 injuries, and I'm thinking, okay, with all these missiles that y'all saying are being sent, it has to be more than that. It has to be more than that. You know what I mean? But they saying that these 150 that were hurt didn't sustain any major injuries and that they were actually back to work, which I was like, that's kind of hard to believe too.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe that.
Right. Like I seen the one where that CIA building got blew up. Like, who knew that building was getting ready to get blew up? You know what I mean? It was some people in there. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of conflicting stories.
Well, and something real quick, because you were talking about the strait a little bit. I have this that I reported on this morning. It's somewhere in here, but I just wanted to show you.
President Trump, the rising cost of oil and the strain on stockpiles of expensive.
Hey, by the way, Toxic Bacon 56 coming in with the 200 to skip ahead here to the strait.
534 THAAD interceptors during last summer's Iranian operation.
And this is this morning, by the way, because what the reports are, even from Trump's mouth, is that we have sunk 51 of their Navy or their naval ships over there in Iran.
2026 defense budget adds only 37 more to the arsenal.
We risk getting into a very precarious situation, one that could invite or tempt somebody like China.
President Xi of China has set 2027 as the year in which his military should be ready to take Taiwan by force if necessary. The U.S. Navy will need missile defense systems for its bases throughout the Pacific.
Like, that is so much money. I mean, I just think of stuff like that. Like, look how much money is just being spent on and I look at it objectively, like, that is not our war. What are we doing?
Right.
It's frustrating.
But then too, if you think about a lot of the not only the missiles and the ordnance that we've used, but what about all these uh, radar stations and stuff like that that cost billions, that cost $1 billion that just got blew up? You know what I mean? That they've
A
had
lot of assets have been destroyed, right?
right. It's a lot of stuff there that you're gonna have to turn around and either put new stuff there, rebuild different stuff. You know what I mean? You got um, you got Russia and China right now that has nuclear subs sitting at the Arctic that they just been sitting there. You know what I mean? So this is something that we've been talking about for a while, about how we've been so spaced out dealing with, because we're quote quote the police of the world. We run around and we got, our troops, like we have a lot of troops, but we're spaced out across the world though. You know what I mean? And when you coming into a situation like this, okay, you have to think about, number one, the area that you are going against, the population there, where you got like over 90 million people that's there. And you got to figure out, even if you decided that you was going to put boots on the ground, how are you going to be able to do it without them knowing that that's what you're doing? You know what I mean? So, because that's it's more of a mountainous area, so it's not like this open spot that you can just get in and get out of. You're gonna have to come in from, you're either gonna have to come in from Pakistan, you're gonna come in from Iraq. You know what I mean? You can come in from all these other, these other points, but they know that that's where you can. They know that that's the only way you're gonna be able to get in. You know what I mean? So of course, when they did the interview with the one minister of defense, and they was talking about, okay, well, what do you think about Trump if he decided to put boots on the ground? And he was like, let him. You know what I mean? They want you
Who
to.
said that? Who said that?
The minister of defense over in Iran the other day. They asked him, what did he think
It'd
about?
be a really dumb. It would be a dumb decision if we did. Honestly, I mean, I look at it as like, kind of like the Vietnam War kind of thing. Like,
right,
us coming in, going like, we're gonna come in and on their terrain. People think like Iran's like a desert and shit. Like they have no idea like the landscape. It's a lot different than people think it is. Good luck, and that's why I was telling people earlier today on my show about it. I go, I really hope, because someone asked me about like my thoughts on boots on the ground or whatever. I said I pray that does not happen. That's all I can do.
Right. Well, it is a remotely desert-like conditions there.
Right, it is.
But it's also very mountainous.
Yes, that's
and
the point that I was getting at.
And going through that, it's a lot of like, just like little single roads that's running through the mountains and stuff like that. I mean, it's not nothing that you're gonna, just easily be able to get into.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so
it's a little rough terrain. Yeah. It's not as easy as people think it is.
Right. And they know where these points are. And they know that if you're trying to come in here, this is how you're going to be able to do it.
Absolutely.
I mean,
look at the
that's the
favelas
country.
across
What they
any
know.
other country. If you got the favelas down in South America. I mean, look at how they are. I mean, their terrain is wild like that. On one road, little things going all the way up to the top of the mountain type thing. Yeah, I mean, meanwhile you've got people with AKs on their top story of their houses and stuff. It's crazy.
And you also got to remember that a lot of these, a lot of those spots there aren't industrialized. A lot of them, are just like little small, little dusty towns that you just going in and out of. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So these people are used to surviving. They're used to being out there, and especially being the fact that most of Iran is desert like. You know what I mean? It's like I seen on there about what somebody said, would just take away the water. I mean, you can, but you also got to think about the region that you're dealing with. It lacks water anyway, and they've been able to keep 90 million people there.
That just made me think, like, yeah, where do they get their water supply from? You know, like I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, I couldn't even begin to go through the whole dealings as to how they getting it, but they getting it if they got 90 million people there. You know what I
Absolutely,
mean?
facts.
Like I said, like not all these people live in the city. A lot of them, they're spaced out throughout that region. You know what I mean? So I don't know whether they're digging down, making wells, stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's all very possible. Don't know. But I do know they've been able to survive. So they got a way of being able to do it. You know what I mean? So it's not like you can just go and clip the switch on the water. In the city, yeah, you can make them in the city, but them ones that stay out there in them regions and stuff like that, you're not hurting them. But let's talk about Russia since we brought that up
Sure.
a few seconds ago, and we're going to talk about their role behind the scenes. So Russia and Iran were not always close partners, but during the Cold War, that's when their relations were kind of complicated because Iran had strong ties with the West because of the Shah. So
right. Well, that we put in place. Right.
Right. He was cool with the West. So, so there was that little conflict there between Iran and Russia. But after 1979, during the Iranian Revolution, Iran became more hostile towards the U.S. And over time, Russia began cooperating with them in different areas. And their partnership kind of strengthened throughout the years, especially because of they had things in common. They were both getting sanctioned by the West.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Syrian civil war that Russia helped with. You had NATO expansion tensions that was going on, and then you had Russia's war with Ukraine. So both governments kind of shared that strategic goal is to basically try to reduce the U.S. influence and their actual global policies. So they ended up signing a couple of different treaties amongst each other, basically saying that if you mess with us, then you got to mess with them. You know what I mean? And this was a treaty that Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea had signed, basically just making like the new Axis powers type deal. You
Like
know
a
what I mean? If you
little
mess with
treaty.
one, you mess with all of us. Yeah.
Right.
And then you had Russia that sold a lot of missile defense systems, including the S-300 air defense systems. They sold them a lot of radar systems. They sold them missile technology. And that S-300 is important because it can shoot down aircraft and cruise missiles from long range, making it harder for their enemy forces to actually strike a lot of Iranian targets. Because as we said before in some of these previous shows, a lot of Iran's military stuff is underground. A lot of their bases is built underground. They showed a thing the other day where they had literally went out and had painted. Did you hear about this? About how they painted airplanes on the runway to make it look like it was jets there?
Yeah, and they also
see that?
they also bought inflatables. No kidding. They actually bought inflatable like tanks and stuff like that, and to be a huge decoy. I don't know if it actually worked out for them in that regard. You know what I mean? If it actually did fool them, I don't know.
Yeah, there was a couple pictures that they had popped out where it showed like direct hits on these spots, thinking that they were blowing up planes, and it was just concrete where they had either painted or they had one of those inflatables out there or whatever, and you just seen it just kind of fold in on itself from the heat.
That's
and it
crazy.
was right. They were doing all kind of little tactics to try to throw the forces off, because I mean you doing a flyby. You're not up close enough to see.
And just like how you were talking about how everything is underground for them, because they know that their opponent, their enemy, which is us, we own the skies, and they've always known that. So we've our Air Force, like they don't even have a proper Air Force. You know what I mean? Their Air Force really is their ballistic missile program, truly. So it's just definitely interesting. When we own the sky, that's when they go underground. And it's always going to be true.
Right. And see, another benefit that Russia was getting out of Iran was because they were able to get their hands on those drones.
Yes.
And Russia has been using them extensively in Ukraine. And you see, even dealing with this, they've used a lot of drones, which is crazy because a lot of these drones has been able to infiltrate a lot of these different spots where they were actually kind of shooting down these missiles using the Patriot system and the dome. You got these drones that's been just slipping in, causing all kind of little havoc. And so
And
you're
they're
using a $1
extremely cheap.
million missile to shoot down something that they only paid $20,000 to build.
Yeah, it's very cheap in comparison.
Right. So in exchange for Iran giving them those drones, then of course Russia has been supplying them with military technology, battlefield intelligence, and
Intel.
a lot of advanced training and stuff like that. But here in the past few days, it's been put out that Russia has been giving them detailed coordinates of a lot of U.S. access as to where different things were for them to be able to actually send missiles to that particular spot. And a lot of people was kind of calling foul on this, you know what I mean? Just saying, you know, you should stay out of this. This don't got nothing to do with you. But
No, it does have to do with him, though.
right. But on the other hand, you could actually say the same thing dealing with Ukraine. You don't got nothing to do with this either, but you involved in it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you giving them intelligence, you telling them where to hit. So why can't I tell them where to hit? You know, so it's a lot of that tit for tat going on. You know what I mean?
So I wanted to say something about, Russia and in the regards to the United States. So far, publicly, Russia strongly condemns the U.S., right? Russia's government has openly criticized the U.S. military action against Iran and framed it as illegal and destabilizing. So they have come out publicly and been like, yes, the U.S. is the aggressor. But here's point number two is privately, Russia may be helping Iran indirectly, which we were just talking about there. And I'm not even going to go into it, but yes, intelligence, all of that stuff, right? And then strategically, number three on this, Russia benefits from the war, from this, what's happening right now. Many analysts say Russia has geopolitical incentives for the conflict to continue. Potential benefits for Moscow: higher oil prices. War in the Middle East drives up oil prices, helping Russia's economy. 2, U.S. distraction. If America is focused on Iran, it may reduce attention and weapons going to Ukraine. 3, pressure on the West. Russia sees Iran as part of a shared anti-Western bloc resisting U.S. influence. So definitely an interesting dynamic there, in regards to not just Russia itself, but who they're tied to and who we're tied to.
Correct.
Correct. Makes it kind of complicated. But so essentially, yes, publicly they're willing to go out there and say, you shouldn't have done that. But is Russia actually going to really do something about it? Aside from intelligence?
Yeah, they were talking about the other day that President Trump had a conversation with Vladimir Putin, and he was trying to get him to ease some sanctions that they had put on him about being able to sell oil over in Europe. And they were saying that if Trump actually agreed to that, then how much money that Russia would actually be able to make right now, being the fact that oil is well over $100 a barrel, how much he would actually profit from that. And that was another point that they were talking about dealing with him. This is one of the reasons why they're they're kind of helping but not helping Iran. It's because they want to keep this going because it's just benefiting them
Yeah.
on the back end.
It's like a net benefit for them, for Russia. Right.
Right. And then too, that's also depleting our forces and what we have. Our stockpile of weapons and stuff like that. Because if we can't supply this war/conflict over here and give to Ukraine and give to Israel, so eventually you're gonna run dry.
Right.
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 And when you run dry, we're gonna be right here waiting on you. Because that's also something that we've talked about before. That if we kept on the progression that we was going, and if something like this did take place to where we were scattered out like we were, what would happen? When they was talking about, for example, when we was talking about Taiwan, we're talking about China wanting to take over Taiwan by 2027. Well,
Right.
if we're depleted and we're sitting here dealing with Ukraine, Iran, you got what we just did in Venezuela. There's something else that's going on.
For Cuba.
Yeah, there's something else that's going on down there. I don't have all the information on it to actually talk about it, but yeah, there's something else that's going on down there. So we're being stretched already. And they can't make weapons that quick. They're not popping out missiles out. Like it's a conveyor belt that they popping so many out every hour.
Well, I'll tell you one thing though: the $1 trillion into our military budget now is showing though. It is showing for sure. Like the reports that are coming out about our medium to large sized munitions is basically endless. That's what their reports are. Is that it's basically limitless. Now the smaller munitions is actually not as much. But yeah.
But that's what they're saying. But if you also go back and remember, the Department of Defense has not passed the audit the past 7 times that they've done an audit.
Right. Well, that's nothing new for the Pentagon and all these guys.
That money ain't never been right. What I mean? So of course they could say, yeah, we got an endless supply of this, and this. Do you really? Or is that just what you're saying? You see what I mean? You're not going to go in there and say, well, we only got 30,000 missiles and we done gave 20,000 away. So we only got about 2 weeks worth of fighting that we can do. They're not going to say that. You know what I mean?
Of course not. Of course not.
But being the fact that they have failed so many of these audits, so somebody knows what they actually have in order for them to fail those audits, and that means your product as opposed to what you spending, the math ain't mathing. So something ain't right there.
Well, it's not, but it's not. Yeah, these guys have never made it right. They can't pass shit, especially with the IRS. Even the IRS can't. I mean, the IRS can't even pass itself correctly either. So there's a lot of messed up problems that we've got.
Right. So then you got one of the bigger things that can actually bother us over here, as we talked about last week, is cyber. And as I started to look up a lot of this stuff, comes to find out that they've been having issues with Iran dealing with cyber since 2006, where they had this operation called Operation Olympic Games, and it was this was a conflict between Iran and the U.S. And the simple goal was to slow down Iran nuclear weapons program throughout, without starting an actual war. And the tool they used was a cyber weapon that they had created called Stuxnet, and it was a computer worm that they put into the program like a virus, and it went through all their stuff and just basically just destroyed a lot of their centrifuges, and their actual nuclear program had got sent back years off of, because I think it destroyed like a little over 1,000 of those centrifuges because of this this worm / virus that they put into it. Then you had in 2012, they had this thing called a flame malware, and it was targeted on Iranian government networks, oil facilities, universities, research labs, and they could record all audio through microphones, capture screenshots, steal files, monitor network traffic, and it was 20 times more complex than a typical malware and was likely designed for long-term surveillance. Now, this is back in 2012. Now, you heard what I said when it was talking about it could record audio through any microphone that was available, capture screenshots, steal files, and monitor network traffic. This was stuff that was done back in 2012. This is also some of the stuff that they're using that came into effect when they did the quote TikTok bill. Remember the stuff that they was talking about putting into that?
Yep.
That's what some of this is.
Well, it sounds like what the Restrict Act was.
Right. So over the past decade, Iran has built one of the most aggressive cyber warfare programs in the world. Iranian cyber groups often target U.S. banks, Israeli infrastructure, enemy companies, energy companies, and government agencies. Iran also rallies heavy on a lot of these proxy groups that carry out website defacement, denial and service attacks, data leaks, and publishing operations. So they've been digging into that since 2016. So it's been a lot of back and forth dealing with the cyber. Now, what can they actually mess with cyber here? You know, we talked about last week where the power grid. We talked about water purification plants, banking, stock market, anything that they can hack into to cause some kind of disruption is basically what they set out to do now. And they've actually
those guys can't even keep their own internet on right now. So I mean, they've got problems of their own.
They may do, but they've actually been doing a lot of this stuff before, and it's actually been working. I was talking to my mom the other day, last week. Now, I don't know whether this was something done by them or not, but this was also during this time. Was 4 to 5 counties in Ohio that completely went dark. They wasn't dark long, probably for
this was recent.
Yeah, just last week. It wasn't long, but they went dark. So they were talking about at that time, they didn't know whether somebody had actually gotten to the program or whether something had actually happened somewhere that actually blew.
Maybe weather related or something. I don't know.
Right. So they was checking for all of that, but they didn't rule out actual cyber attack. Actually, in that particular area, I think me and Aaron was talking about this at one point where they were saying that they were that the Iranians go at least 30 to 40 times a day trying to tap into their 911 systems.
Damn.
They're in Ohio.
That's how many times they try to tap it, like get into it, hack into it.
Right, like
Wow.
daily. Like they daily try to hack into the system.
I'm sure it's like an AI bot system that's trying to nonstop get in.
Oh yeah, surely. But you know that if they go into that extent, trying to get into 911 system, so you know that they're trying to get into a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? Anything that they can possibly get into that they can actually control, that you can be able to cause some kind of chaos, that's what's going to happen.
So I got something that I wanted to show you because we were talking about kind of like electronic warfare in that aspect. And remember how I showed you that AI Tele, that's the name of the actual channel or whatever. And they describe all the different things, how the working parts of like warfare work, all of that. And so I wanted to share this with you. And I'm not saying this is 100% fact, but this is everything that, again, every single time that I watch something like this, I, of course, then go and start researching it myself because I like the facts, obviously. That's all I care about. And for the most part, this has always been historically, since I've been watching them for, I don't know, well over a year now, that they're right. So I just wanted to show you this, and we're not going to watch this whole thing or nothing, but I wanted to show you an interesting thing about U.S. electronic warfare on them.
How does the U.S. use electronic warfare in the air and at sea? Well, this small jet is the tip of the spear before the U.S. sends its high-value aircraft into battle. But what strategies does it actually use to blind enemy radar? First, it can use spot jamming to completely overwhelm the enemy's sensors. Second option is it can also create a digital duplicate of itself, tricking enemy missiles into locking onto a phantom target. And the military has another third trick up its sleeve, beaming fleets of fake jets directly onto the enemy's radar screens. But they don't just fire up these electronic weapons blindly. Here's the secret. They've been mapping the enemy's radar systems for months, gathering critical intelligence before transferring all that data directly into these targeting pods being flown by these jets. This is the E-A-18G Growler's Advanced Electronic Warfare System, where the electronic warfare officer controls all the active jamming pods.
There's like two different men on here there, aside from the pilot, that are actually jamming and doing a whole bunch of shit.
The rear seat occupant, known as the ECMO, Electronic Countermeasures Officer, is the critical human element. While the pilot flies the jet, the ECMO controls all jamming systems in real time. He can choose the correct jamming techniques with this ALQ-218 radar. He can use spot jamming to disable a radar like this one. Once the Growler's sensors sniff out the exact frequency of an enemy radar, it doesn't just make noise, it focuses over 10 kilowatts of raw electromagnetic power directly at it. It burns through the system's processing like a blowtorch, blinding the defense grid completely. But the Growler also can emit the Phantom Fleet. It doesn't just blind the enemy, it plays mind games. It catches an incoming radar pulse, scrambles the data, and fires it right back. Suddenly, the radar operator sees dozens of ghost fighter jets swarming their screen. Panic sets in, surface-to-air missiles are fired, but they lock onto Phantoms, detonating the empty sky. But how does it use the bait-and-switch strategy? Even if an enemy missile actually manages to lock onto a real US jet, the Growler pulls a massive bait-and-switch. It perfectly mimics the targeted jet's exact speed and location to create a digital clone. Once the enemy radar locks onto this clone, the Growler slowly drags the fake signal away. The tracking system blindly chases the ghost, and the real aircraft escapes unharmed. Then there is this danger zone or burn-through. Jamming, however...
Now, I just wanted to show you this because this is totally interesting in the aspect of electronic warfare. And then it goes in depth about all the other ways that we do this, but this is just clearing the road essentially for a B2. Essentially, that's it. Then it goes into in depth about how electronic warfare that the United States plays in. So I'll leave you guys the link so that you guys can go check it out as well. So I don't take up the entire show with that.
No, you fine. I didn't even know about that. That's actually pretty neat how they came.
And there's so much more than just that one little point. I mean, it's only a 10-minute video, but it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did get a thing I looked at earlier today where the U.S. Navy had deployed the E-6B. That's the Mercury Nuclear Command aircraft. I can say airplane. And it's over in the Middle East now. Do you know what? Are you familiar with that aircraft?
What's the name of it?
The E-6B.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, it's basically it's what they call you can look it up. It's basically what they call the doomsday plane. That's that's the actual aircraft that gives out final orders to like your subs, your bombers,
Mm-hmm.
and your command and control stations. So it basically flies through and it gives out. That's what gives out the orders to do what. You know what I
Wow.
mean? Now they just sent this plane to the Middle East. It just got there yesterday. So a lot of them are wondering, like, okay, why is that plane there? You know what I mean?
Right.
If this is just a conflict, you know what I mean, something that they said was going to be done. First they said a week, then they went to 3 weeks, then they went from 5 weeks. Now they talk, you know, then I heard one report where they said that it could last all the way up to September. You know what I mean? What's the why you got that plane there? You know what I mean? Unless you
Well, we got all of our major assets there. I mean, we've got the biggest presence actually since 2003 when we invaded Iraq, right?
right, I'm with you on that.
We're even more heavily than we were then.
They got a lot of stuff there, you know, because they got a lot of B2 stealths and all them. They got them over in Diego Garcia and all them. They do have them there. Now, what I'm talking about is this particular plane here, though, because this particular plane here, you don't even see unless some shit gonna hit the fan. This plane here stays parked. Like they do maintenance on this plane or whatever to have it ready, like in case it ever has to take off, then it's good to go.
I'm gonna have to research that
But
this
to have
plane
that
because it's
particular
interesting.
plane there, you know, that throws out a lot of speculation to people who actually know what that plane's about.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, you know, service wise, they know that as the doomsday plane. That's the plane that flies. When you see that plane, then you know all hell could officially break loose with that plane being there, because that's the reason why it's there. It's just there to give orders. That's it. You know, it doesn't drop bombs. It doesn't do none of that. It's there for one particular reason, just to give orders. You know what I mean? So for that particular plane to be there, throws a lot of speculation as to.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I let's say this plane hasn't been used, you know, like this since. I mean, however, maybe it's never been used. I don't know. Like they've only kept it perfect for an ideal situation. I mean, the GBU 58s or whatever it was called, the 30,000-pound bombs that we were dropping. The Pentagon and all of that, they prepared that exact bomb for that exact mountain in Iran 10 years prior. You know what I mean? They make munitions for specific things. And it's crazy, the amount of intelligence and testing that goes involved in it. Like, they actually tested those 30,000-pound bombs like a ton of times.
Mm-hmm.
And recreated an actual mountain just like that mountain that had the nuclear power plant or whatever at the bottom, or enrichment facility or whatever. Yeah, it's totally interesting. The United States even went as far as to make a mock version of it and test it.
Now you see today that it finally came out that it actually was a Tomahawk missile that hit that school that killed those children.
Yes, it was.
And at first they were talking about that it wasn't our Tomahawk. Then they said that it was stolen, and they shot.
I wish
own
they would
school.
just be honest.
Right, exactly. Like stop lying. You did it.
Yes,
you messed up. You hit the wrong spot.
Listen. Here's the thing that I don't know if I told you this yet or not, but I've been following that story hardcore since I've been made aware of it. We totally did that. Now, let me go ahead and just say one thing, is that 10 years prior, that exact location was actually used for military purposes. You know, it's on the base, of course, you know, but then they had bad, faulty intel, and they should have reconfirmed this kind of shit, because we even do the same exact thing. You can call it stupid, dumb, retarded, whatever, but on our military bases too, we have schools and shit. That's just, it is what it is. And so we should have done some intel research like, hey, this is 10 years old intel on this. Why don't we confirm that that's not what that is, or it is what it is, right? You would have found out it was a school,
Right. I mean,
and I saw the layout.
Being the fact that we have satellites that you can go as close to read a license plate number, you can go over top of there and see some little kids running around playing and say, oh, that's a school now. You know what I mean? There could have been some other intel, just like you said, to double check before you hit that school. You know what I mean? And then when I think the biggest part about that, what actually kind of pissed me off on that is that when they first started talking about it, then they started lying, trying to say somebody stole the Tomahawk and did it. And then today, when they ask about it, and instead of them saying like, yeah, this happened, it was a mistake, you know what I mean, we're going to take full responsibility for that, blah, 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 blah. One of them said, oh, I don't know nothing about it.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people did that exact number right there. I don't know anything about it. Meanwhile, those Tomahawks, there's only a few countries that have that kind of shit, and we're one of them. And so it's not like, oh, Iran did it. Well, what the fuck? They don't got Tomahawks. Just saying, I mean, that was what the claim originally was. Oh, that was Iran that did it or some shit. I'm like, no, that doesn't add up. It was a miscalculated thing. It was tragic. And in warfare, everyone deserves the truth. I think, yes, we know as a nation, we're big boys and girls here. We know that there's going to be fuck ups. There's going to be tragedies. There's going to be accidents. There's going to be deaths. If you fuck up, the right thing to do is to be honest and transparent with your people.
Absolutely. Exactly. What we sitting at? So we sitting at 108.
Yeah, we did good. We went over a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to tune it down. But I wanted to say this before we actually tune it down. History shows that a lot of these wars start small and then they grow larger throughout because of different reactions. You know what I mean? Like you said, like every action has an equal and opposite reaction. But know that the reaction that you give out may come back even harder or more than what you actually put out there in the first place. So you got a lot of miscommunication, accidents, like we were just talking about, overreaction, a little bit too many words being said can actually push these conflicts into unexpected directions. And this is why analysis around the world are watching this situation very closely. Because the reality is that no one knows exactly how this conflict is going to unfold. It could fade into just another chapter in Middle East tension, or it could actually fade out into an actual full war where these other countries are jumping in. Like I said, you got the UK that's sending their Navy over there. You got other countries that's sending stuff over there right now. This is not going to be a quick in and out, especially being the fact that these other countries are getting involved now. Sending their navies over there. Remember, we talked about this last week. You said it was going to be quicker. I said that it wasn't, and then we started seeing these other countries slowly starting to send their navy over there, send ordnance over there. Doing all this other stuff.
They came in a little late.
Right, it's brewing, and I'm thinking like it's already bad, but it's gonna take one or two things that's gonna happen to make it worse. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking two things. And I kind of call shit out ahead of time. So it's two things. Either one, something bad over there is going to take place, which like you're going to hit an aircraft carrier or something like that that's going to be really bad. Or two, something will happen here in the mainland, especially dealing with like drones, like a drone attack dirty bomb, some shit like that, that would
From
that
a
would
domestic
happen,
level, though.
right? That would happen
Right.
to be like, okay, they did it. We're gonna lock in on them. You know what I mean? But with what happens over here, you got to be real careful about though, because it could be something that they plan to do over here, or it could be something that could be done over here as, I don't know the actual word to use, basically where somebody does something here and then they blame this person for doing it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Kind of like how like Israel was doing stuff over in Turkey, but they were blaming Iran to do it. You know what I mean? That done it, and they found
Right.
out that it was actually Israel that done it. You know what I'm saying? I forget the actual word that you use for that, but you got to pay attention to it, because there's going to be something that's going to take place that's going to actually, is either going to intensify what's going on over there, or it's going to kill it altogether. You know what I mean? So just keep your ears open, everybody. Just pay attention to what's really going on, and always remember, it's not what's being told to you. The question you should ask yourself is what's not being told to you. But we're gonna drop it out for tonight. Like I said, I appreciate all of you for being on. Like always, hit that like button on your way out on Mike's page and on Mike's page. Like, follow, share, subscribe. Help us get these stories out. You know what I mean? Some of y'all know we've been fighting this never-ending battle with YT. I ain't gonna say the actual name, but you know what I'm talking about, because they don't like us putting this stuff out.
Definitely not.
And they do everything humanly possible to kind of shadow ban it, to kind of push it back to where people not getting this information. So how y'all can help us get this out there is hit the button. You know what I mean? And we've seen there were several people that was on there watching tonight, and I appreciate you all for being on there. Hit that button. Help us out. Help us get this out there to these people that need to see this. Also, hit the little QR code at the top. It'll take you over to the Dominant Effect podcast site. You can see some of the old shows. There's also a lot of merchandise stuff on there. There's a lot of stuff on there you can check out. And if you become a subscriber over there, I think it's like a $2.99 subscriber, you get into the other part of the site that actually shows you a whole lot more stuff that you wouldn't see on there just going on there checking it out. Also, for the ones on Facebook, go on the Dominant Effect podcast. We got a group on Facebook. We put a lot of different stuff on there every day. A lot of information. So just go on there and check it out. Like I said. So once again, thank you all for coming on every week. Thank you all for your support. And we'll see y'all next week. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, guys. Much love, honor, respect, everybody. Thank you guys for listening in on these important conversations. Very blessed to be able to have these conversations and have you guys listening. Listen, stick around. We're going to be raiding our buddy Powder Dusty. He's live right now. Make sure you guys let him know we're coming through with the Mike Ball raid and Diamond Effect raid. So listen, much love, honor, respect, everybody. We'll see you guys here in 7 days.
They're back.